I sit in the circle of folding chairs, my hands clasped so tightly that my knuckles have gone white. The basement of St. Matthew's smells like burnt coffee and that particular mustiness that clings to church spaces, old carpet, hymnals, and decades of whispered confessions. Above us, the fluorescent lights flicker intermittently, casting harsh shadows that dance across the concrete walls painted an optimistic yellow that only manages to look tired under this lighting. The woman leading our group is talking about resilience again. Something about finding strength in our darkest moments, about the courage it takes to rebuild. Her voice drifts over me like background noise, well-meaning but distant. I twist my wedding ring around my finger, feeling the familiar groove it has worn into my skin after 18 years of marriage. The gold band catches the light, and for a moment I wonder when it started to feel so heavy. Around me, others lean forward in their chairs, nodding at the appropriate moments, some taking notes in small journals. There's Margaret, whose husband left her for a younger woman. David, who lost his job and his sense of purpose in the same week. Sarah, whose children no longer speak to her. We're all here for different reasons, but we share the same hollow look, the same carefully maintained composure that threatens to crack at any moment. That's when I see her. Naomi sits directly across from me in the circle, and the recognition hits me like a physical blow to my chest. She looks older, of course. We both do, but there's something unchanged in her eyes, something that reaches across 23 years as if they were nothing. Her dark hair is shorter now, streaked with silver at the temples, and she wears it pushed behind her ears in a way that's effortlessly elegant. She's listening intently to the group leader, her head tilted slightly, but I can feel the moment her attention shifts to me. Our eyes meet. She smiles, and it's not the polite, careful smile I've learned to give strangers. It's the smile of recognition, of shared secrets, of a language we once spoke fluently together. My breath catches, and I have to look away, focusing instead on the motivational poster taped to the wall behind her head. Something about growth requiring discomfort. The irony isn't lost on me. When I finally look back, Naomi is still watching me with that same gentle intensity one remember from college. From before I chose the safer path. From before I learned to live in the margins of my own life. My heart hammers against my ribs, and I'm grateful for the dim lighting that might hide the flush creeping up my neck. The group continues around the circle. People share their stories of loss, of starting over, of finding themselves again after divorce or death or disappointment. I should be listening. This is why I'm here, after all, trying to figure out why I feel so hollow despite having everything I thought I wanted. But all I can think about is the way Naomi's presence seems to fill the space between us, making the air feel charged and dangerous. My wedding ring feels like it's burning against my skin. I think about Marcus at home, probably in his office with the door closed, reviewing quarterly reports or watching sports highlights. I think about Evelyn upstairs doing homework, her earbuds in, living in her own teenage world. My family, my life, my carefully constructed reality, all of it suddenly feels fragile, like a house of cards that could collapse with the slightest breath. When the meeting ends, people begin to mill around, stacking chairs and exchanging pleasantries. I move slowly, hoping to slip out unnoticed, but Naomi approaches me as I fold my chair. She moves with the same quiet confidence she had in college, the same way of making everything around her seem calmer, more focused. She touches my arm, just briefly, her fingers warm through my sweater, and leans close enough that I can smell her perfume. Something subtle and sophisticated that I don't recognize, nothing like the patchouli and vanilla she used to wear when we were 20. "It's just between us," she says quietly, and her voice is exactly as I remember it, low and rich like honey. The words seem to carry more weight than they should, as if she's not just talking about our chance encounter here in this church basement, but about something larger, something we've both been carrying in silence all these years. I nod, not trusting my voice, and she squeezes my arm gently before stepping back. She gathers her things and leaves with the rest of the group, but her words linger in the basement air long after the door closes behind her. I sit alone in my car afterward, gripping the steering wheel and staring at the church entrance. The phrase echoes in my mind, just between us, and I realize it's both a promise and an invitation. Something is shifting inside me, some carefully constructed wall beginning to crack, and I'm not sure if I'm terrified or relieved. The drive home feels longer than usual, every familiar landmark seeming foreign somehow. When I finally pull into my driveway, I sit for a moment looking at my house with its warm yellow porch light and perfectly maintained garden. Everything exactly as it should be. Everything exactly as I built it to be. But Naomi's smile has reminded me of who I used to be, before I learned to be so careful, so safe. And for the first time in years, I feel the dangerous stirring of wanting something I cannot name. The seed of disquiet she planted with those 4 simple words has already begun to grow, and I know there will be no uprooting it now. I unlock the front door to the sound of the dishwasher humming and Marcus calling from his office that dinner smells good. I haven't started cooking yet, but I don't correct him. Instead, I hang my keys on the small hook by the door and survey my domain, the entryway with its carefully arranged family photos, the living room where throw pillows sit at perfect angles on the sectional sofa, the dining table that gleams under the pendant light Marcus installed last spring. This is my life. Clean lines, neutral colors, everything in its place. A testament to my ability to create order from chaos, to build something stable and beautiful from scratch. The house itself tells the story I've written for us: successful husband, devoted wife, promising daughter. A story so convincing that sometimes even I believe it. Evelyn thunders down the stairs, her backpack slung over one shoulder, dark hair falling across her face in a way that reminds me painfully of myself at 17. She's beautiful in that unconscious way teenagers have, all sharp angles and intensity. She grabs an apple from the bowl on the counter and kisses my cheek in passing. "How is group?" she asks, already halfway to the door where her friend Emma waits in a car that's seen better days. "Fine," I tell her. Helpful. The lie comes so easily now. She pauses at the door, studying my face with the kind of perception that makes me nervous. Evelyn has always been too observant for her own good, too willing to ask the questions that others politely avoid. For a moment I think she might press further, but Emma honks the horn and the moment passes. "Don't wait up," she calls, and then she's gone, leaving me alone with the weight of my own carefully maintained silence. I move through the motions of dinner preparation: chicken breasts seasoned with herbs, vegetables arranged on a baking sheet, the small rituals that have defined my evenings for nearly 2 decades. Marcus emerges from his office as I slide everything into the oven, loosening his tie with one hand while scrolling through his phone with the other. He's a good man, Marcus. Reliable, hardworking, devoted to providing for his family. He loves me in the way he knows how, with steady presence, with practical gestures, with the assumption that our life together is exactly what it appears to be. He has never questioned my contentment because I have never given him reason to. I have been the wife he needed me to be, the woman who makes his life easier, smoother, more manageable. "How is the support group?" he asks, settling into his usual chair at the kitchen island. He asks this every week, with the same tone he might use to inquire about the weather or the grocery bill. "Good," I say, the same answer I always give. "It's helping." He nods, satisfied, and returns to his phone. This is how we communicate now, in brief exchanges that skim the surface of our days without ever diving deeper. It's comfortable, I tell myself. It's stable. But tonight, with Naomi's words still echoing in my mind, our interaction feels hollow in a way that makes my chest ache. I watch Marcus scroll through emails, his face lit by the blue glow of his screen, and I realize that he doesn't really see me anymore. Maybe he never did. Maybe I never let him. After dinner, after the dishes are loaded and the counters wiped clean, after Marcus has retreated to his office and the house has settled into its evening quiet, I find myself standing in our bedroom closet. My hands shake slightly as I reach behind my winter coats, past the boxes of Christmas decorations and old tax returns, to the small wooden box I keep hidden in the very back. I haven't opened it in years, but tonight I need to remember. Inside are the remnants of the girl I used to be, letters written in midnight purple ink, pressed flowers from walks through campus in October. A small collection of poems I wrote when words still felt like magic instead of carefully measured tools for maintaining appearances. And there, at the bottom, a photograph. Naomi and me at 21, sitting on the steps of the library, our shoulders touching, both of us laughing at something outside the frame. She has her hand on my knee, and I'm leaning into her with the easy intimacy of youth, before I learned to measure the space between my body and others. I stare at the photograph for a long time, remembering the weight of her hand, the sound of her laugh, the way she could make me feel both grounded and weightless at the same time. I remember writing poetry about the color of her eyes, about the way she said my name like it meant something important. I remember believing that love could be simple, that wanting someone was reason enough to reach for them. I remember who I was before I learned to be afraid. The sound of Marcus brushing his teeth drifts from the bathroom, and I quickly close the box, shoving it back into its hiding place behind the coats. By the time he emerges, I'm already in bed, staring at the ceiling and pretending to be tired. He slides in beside me, his movements careful not to disturb my supposed rest. For a moment I think he might reach for me, might bridge the invisible distance that has grown between us over the years. But he simply settles on his side of the bed, and within minutes his breathing evens into the steady rhythm of sleep. I lie awake long after midnight, thinking about the way Naomi looked at me in that church basement. Like she could still see the girl I used to be, buried underneath 18 years of careful choices and measured responses. Like that girl was still worth knowing. In the darkness, I touch my wedding ring and wonder when it stopped feeling like a symbol of love and started feeling like a lock. I think about Naomi's words, just between us, and realize they weren't just about keeping our encounter secret. They were about acknowledging a truth that exists in the space between who I am and who I've allowed myself to become. Something has shifted tonight, some fundamental change that I can't undo simply by closing my eyes and willing it away. Tomorrow I'll wake up and make coffee and pack Evelyn's lunch and kiss Marcus goodbye at the door. I'll maintain the rhythm of our life with the same careful attention I always have. But underneath it all, something new is growing. Something dangerous and beautiful and utterly terrifying. And for the first time in years, I don't know if I have the strength to keep it buried. The call comes on a Tuesday evening while I'm folding laundry in the living room. Marcus is upstairs helping Evelyn with calculus, their voices drifting down the hallway in the patient rhythm of homework sessions. The phone rings and I almost don't answer it, assuming it's another robocall or fundraising request. But something makes me check the caller ID, and my breath catches when I see a number I don't recognize with a local area code. I answer on the fourth ring, my voice carefully neutral. "Clara," she says, and hearing my name in Naomi's voice after all these years makes my knees weak. I sink onto the couch, still holding a half-folded sweater against my chest like armor. "Naomi," I manage, and the word feels strange on my tongue, like speaking a language I haven't used in decades. "I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the group directory." She pauses, and I can hear something playing softly in the background, jazz, maybe, something low and intimate. "I wanted to ask you about something." My heart pounds so loudly I'm certain she can hear it through the phone. I glance toward the stairs, making sure Marcus and Evelyn are still occupied, before finding my voice. "What is it?" I ask, though part of me already knows this isn't really about whatever excuse she's going to offer. "There's a community initiative I'm helping with," she says, and her tone is casual, carefully constructed. "Food bank organization, volunteer coordination, that sort of thing. I thought you might be interested in getting involved." "You always had such a generous heart." The compliment lands like a physical touch, unexpected and warming. I remember how she used to see things in me that I couldn't see myself, how she could make me feel capable of more than I thought possible. "I don't know," I start to say, but she continues as if she anticipated my hesitation. "Maybe we could meet for coffee first. Just to catch up, talk about old times. Nothing formal." She pauses again, and when she speaks, her voice is softer, more intimate. "Just between us." Those words again. They seem to carry weight beyond their simple meaning, like a code we established long ago and never forgot. I close my eyes and try to summon the practical objections, my schedule, my responsibilities, the comfortable routine that governs my days. But all I can think about is the way she looked at me in that church basement, like she could still see something worth knowing. I suppose that would be fine, I hear myself saying, though fine feels like the most inadequate word possible for what I'm feeling. Perfect. She suggests a small cafe downtown, the kind of place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Nothing like the chain restaurants Marcus and I frequent, nothing like anywhere I would normally go. Thursday afternoon, she says. 2 o'clock. After I hang up, I sit in the silence of my living room, the folded laundry forgotten beside me. I can hear Marcus explaining derivatives upstairs, Evelyn asking questions in that earnest way she has when she's trying to understand something complex. The normalcy of it should be comforting, but instead it feels surreal, like I'm observing someone else's life from a great distance. I spend the next 2 days in a state of nervous anticipation that I try desperately to hide. I catch myself checking my reflection more often, wondering what Naomi will see when she looks at me now. I practice conversations in my head, rehearsing casual responses to questions she might ask. But nothing prepares me for the reality of seeing her again. She's already seated when I arrive at the cafe, tucked into a corner booth with a cup of tea steaming in front of her. She's changed from the other night, wearing a soft gray sweater that brings out her eyes, her hair falling loose around her shoulders. She looks up when I enter, and that same smile spreads across her face, warm and genuine and completely disarming. "Clara," she says, standing to embrace me. The hug is brief, but I catch her scent again, that sophisticated perfume mixed with something uniquely her that I remember from years ago. It's like stepping back in time and forward into an unknown future simultaneously. We settle into the booth and order coffee, making small talk about the weather, the cafe, anything but the elephant in the room. But gradually, as the afternoon light shifts through the windows, our conversation deepens. Naomi talks about her life with a frankness that both thrills and terrifies me. She tells me about her divorce 3 years ago, how she finally admitted to herself and her husband that she couldn't keep pretending to be someone she wasn't. She speaks about her partner Sarah, who left 6 months ago for someone who could offer her the kind of certainty Naomi couldn't provide. She talks about starting over at 52, about learning to live authentically even when it's messy and complicated and lonely. I listen, captivated by her honesty, by the way she owns her choices without apology or regret. She seems simultaneously the same person I knew in college and completely transformed, freer somehow, unencumbered by the careful calculations that govern my every move. "What about you?" she asks eventually, her eyes studying my face with that same intensity one remember. "Are you happy, Clara?" The question hangs in the air between us, deceptively simple but loaded with implications. I think about my standard answer, yes, of course, very blessed, very fortunate. The words I've trained myself to say automatically when anyone asks. But looking into Naomi's eyes, those careful phrases seem impossible. Instead, I find myself saying, I don't know anymore. I used to think I was, but lately. I trail off, surprised by my own honesty. She nods as if this makes perfect sense, as if my uncertainty is not a failing, but simply a fact worth acknowledging. She doesn't push for more, doesn't try to fill the silence with empty reassurances. Instead, she simply reaches across the table and covers my hand with hers, her touch warm and steady and completely natural. "It's okay not to know," she says quietly. "It's okay to question things, even after all this time." Her hand on mine feels like coming home and stepping off a cliff simultaneously. I look down at our joined hands, her skin slightly tanned, a thin silver band on her ring finger where a wedding ring used to be, my own hand pale and marked by the permanent indent of 18 years of marriage. When I finally look up, Naomi is watching me with something that might be understanding, or hope, or patience. Maybe all three. We talk for another hour, but the conversation feels different now, charged with possibility. When she walks me to my car, she hugs me goodbye again, longer this time, and whispers against my ear that she's glad I came. Driving home, I realized the invitation was never really about coffee or community work. It was about opening a door I thought I had sealed forever, about acknowledging that the connection between us didn't disappear just because I chose to ignore it. Naomi's presence feels like fate, like time itself has conspired to return what I once lost, what I gave up in favor of safety and convention. But now, sitting in my driveway looking at my house with its warm lights and perfect landscaping, I'm not sure safety is worth what it has cost me. And for the first time in decades, I'm not sure I want to keep paying that price. The second coffee meeting happens a week later, ostensibly to discuss the food bank volunteer schedule. By the third meeting, we've abandoned the pretense entirely. I find myself making excuses to leave the house more often. A grocery run that takes 2 hours, a book club meeting that doesn't exist, errands that somehow always lead me to wherever Naomi is. She texts me now, simple messages that make my phone feel dangerous in my pocket. Thinking of you. Hope your day is going well. Would love to see you soon. I delete them after reading, but I can't delete the way they make me feel. Noticed, wanted, alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. We meet at different places each time, as if we're both aware that routine would make this real in a way we're not ready to acknowledge. Sometimes it's another cafe, sometimes the park where we walk the winding paths and talk about everything except what's happening between us. Once, she suggests her apartment, and something in my chest flutters like a trapped bird when I say yes. Her place is exactly what I expected and nothing like my own home. Books everywhere, art on the walls that means something to her personally rather than simply matching the furniture. Plants thriving in corners where light spills through tall windows. It's lived in and authentic and completely unpretentious, like Naomi herself. We sit on her couch with wine glasses between us, talking late into the evening. The conversation flows like it used to, before I learned to measure my words and thoughts. Naomi has a gift for drawing out parts of me I'd forgotten existed, my sharp observations about people, my dry sense of humor, the dreamer who used to write poetry in coffee shop margins. She laughs at something I say about our old literature professor, throwing her head back in genuine delight, and the sound does something to me. I realize I haven't made anyone laugh like that in years. Marcus chuckles politely at my comments. Evelyn rolls her eyes at my attempts at humor, but Naomi laughs like I've given her something precious. Tell me what you're reading, she says, curling her feet under her on the couch. Not what you think you should read, but what you actually want to read. The question catches me off guard. I can't remember the last time anyone asked me what I wanted, about anything. I fumble for an answer, realizing that I've been choosing books the way I choose everything else, carefully, appropriately, with consideration for how they'll look on my nightstand rather than how they'll make me feel. I don't know, I admit, and the confession feels more intimate than it should. I used to read poetry constantly. I used to write it too. Do you still write? She asks, and something in her voice tells me she already knows the answer. No. I stopped years ago. I tell myself I don't have time, but the truth is I stopped believing I had anything worth saying. She studies my face in the lamplight, and I feel seen in a way that's both thrilling and terrifying. You do, she says quietly. You have so much worth saying. You always did. The certainty in her voice makes something crack open inside my chest. When did I stop believing in my own thoughts, my own voice? When did I decide that keeping peace was more important than speaking truth? These evenings with Naomi become an addiction I can't name. Sometimes we meet at her apartment, sometimes we sit in my car parked along the lake where the city lights reflect off the water like fallen stars. We talk about books and memories and dreams we thought we'd outgrown. We talk about everything except the electricity that builds between us with each passing hour. But I notice things. The way her hand lingers when she passes me a cup of tea. How she finds excuses to sit closer to me on her couch, close enough that I can feel the warmth radiating from her skin. The softness in her eyes when she looks at me, like I'm something precious she's been searching for and finally found. I catch myself watching her mouth when she talks, remembering what it felt like to kiss her 23 years ago. I notice how she touches my arm when she makes a point, how she says my name like it tastes good in her mouth. The awareness builds between us like a storm gathering strength, beautiful and dangerous and inevitable. At home, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Marcus moves through our house like a stranger, focused on his work, his routines, his assumption that our life is exactly what it appears to be. He kisses me goodbye in the morning with the same distracted affection he's shown for years, and I feel like I'm betraying him simply by being someone he doesn't recognize. "Where have you been?" Evelyn asks one evening when I come home later than usual, my cheeks still flushed from laughing with Naomi about something I can't repeat to my daughter. "You seem different lately." The observation hits me like cold water. If Evelyn notices, how long before Marcus does? How long before my carefully maintained facade cracks completely? "I've been helping with some community volunteer work," I tell her, the lie bitter on my tongue. "It's been really fulfilling." She studies me with that unsettling teenage perception, and I wonder what she sees. Do I look guilty? Do I look happy? Do I look like someone coming back to life after years of sleepwalking? "That's good, Mom," she says finally. "You seem more like yourself lately." The comment haunts me for days. More like myself. What does that mean? Who am I supposed to be, and who have I been pretending to be all these years? Marcus starts asking questions too, casual inquiries about my schedule that feel loaded with suspicion. "You're out a lot lately," he observes over dinner one night. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I say, the words automatic. "Just staying busy." But nothing is fine. Every moment with Naomi makes me more aware of what's missing in my marriage and my life. Every conversation with her reminds me of who I used to be, who I might still be if I had the courage to reach for it. I start lying more frequently, small deceptions that pile up like autumn leaves. I tell Marcus I'm at the grocery store when I'm sitting in Naomi's living room. I tell Evelyn I'm running errands when I'm parked by the lake talking about the books that changed our lives. Each lie feels like another step away from the woman I've been for 18 years, toward someone I'm not sure I have the right to become. But with Naomi, I feel awake in a way I'd forgotten was possible. She sees my mind, my humor, my restless spirit that I've kept carefully contained for so long. When she looks at me, I remember what it feels like to be truly known by another person, to be valued for who I am rather than what I provide. I stand at the edge of something vast and terrifying, exhilarated by the possibility and paralyzed by the consequences. Every evening I spend with Naomi brings me closer to a truth I'm not sure I'm ready to face. But I can't seem to stop myself from falling toward it, like gravity has shifted and she's become my true north. The safe life I built feels increasingly like a beautiful prison, and Naomi holds the key to a door I'm not sure I have the courage to open. But with each passing day, each stolen hour, each moment of feeling truly alive, the choice becomes less about courage and more about survival. I don't know how much longer I can live divided against myself. The evening that changes everything starts like all the others. Naomi calls just as I'm finishing dinner cleanup, Marcus already retreated to his office, Evelyn upstairs with homework and headphones. The familiar flutter in my chest when I hear her voice, the careful excuse I make about picking up something from the pharmacy, the way I check my reflection in the car mirror before driving to her apartment. But tonight feels different from the moment she opens the door. There's something in her eyes, a kind of gentle urgency that makes my breath catch. She's made dinner, nothing elaborate, just pasta and wine, and the kind of easy intimacy that feels both foreign and perfectly natural. We eat at her small kitchen table, talking about books and memories, but underneath the conversation runs a current of electricity that neither of us acknowledges. When she reaches for the wine bottle to refill our glasses, her fingers brush mine and linger a moment longer than necessary. When I laugh at something she says, she watches my face with an intensity that makes my cheeks warm. After dinner, we migrate to her couch with our wine glasses, settling into the comfortable closeness that has become our ritual. The apartment is quiet except for the soft jazz playing in the background and the distant sounds of the city beyond her windows. Golden light from the table lamps creates shadows that dance across the walls, making everything feel intimate and suspended from the ordinary world. We're talking about college, about the poetry I used to write, when Naomi suddenly goes quiet. She's studying my face in that way she has, like she's trying to memorize something precious. "What?" I ask, suddenly self-conscious. "I was just thinking about that poem you wrote," she says softly. "The one about longing being a language we speak in silence." I'm surprised she remembers. I'd forgotten about that poem entirely, written late one night in the library when I was 21 and full of unnamed wants. I feel exposed, like she's found a diary I thought I'd hidden. You kept so much inside. Even then, she continues, her voice gentle. Like you were afraid of taking up too much space in the world. The observation cuts deeper than it should. I take a sip of wine, using the gesture to buy time while I try to formulate a response. But before I can speak, Naomi sets down her glass and turns to face me fully. Clara, she says, and there's something in the way she says my name that makes everything else fall away. The careful distance we've maintained, the pretense that this is just friendship, the elaborate dance we've been performing around the truth that pulses between us. I look into her eyes and see my own longing reflected back at me, magnified and unashamed. My heart pounds so loudly I'm certain she can hear it in the quiet of her living room. Slowly, deliberately, she reaches for my hand. Her fingers intertwine with mine, warm and certain, and for a long moment neither of us moves. I stare at our joined hands and feel the last of my careful defenses crumbling. I've missed this, she says quietly, her thumb tracing gentle circles on my skin. I've missed you. The words hang in the air between us, weighted with 23 years of silence and separation. I know I should pull away, should remember my wedding ring and my daughter asleep in her bed and the life I've built from careful choices and measured responses. But I can't seem to move, can't seem to do anything but drink in the sight of her face in the lamplight. She leans closer, slowly enough that I could stop her if I wanted to. But I don't want to. I've forgotten how to want anything this purely, this completely. Her free hand comes up to cup my cheek, her touch gentle and reverent, like I'm something precious she's been afraid to break. When she kisses me, it's soft at first, hesitant, a question more than a statement. But the moment our lips touch, something inside me shatters completely. Not breaks, shatters, like a wall I didn't know I'd built collapsing all at once, revealing the landscape of myself that I'd hidden even from my own sight. The kiss deepens, and I feel the rush of recognition that has nothing to do with memory and everything to do with truth. This is who I am. This has always been who I am. The woman who built a careful life around acceptable choices, who learned to love in the ways that were expected of her, who convinced herself that contentment was enough. She was always a performance, a character I played so well I forgot she wasn't real. But this is real. Naomi's hands in my hair, the way she breathes my name against my lips, the feeling of coming home to a place I didn't know I'd been searching for. For the first time in decades, I feel whole. When we finally break apart, we're both breathing hard. Naomi's forehead rests against mine, her eyes closed, and I can see the wonder and terror in her face that mirrors my own. I should go, I whisper, but the words have no conviction behind them. Should you, she asks, not moving away. I think about Marcus waiting at home, probably asleep by now with his back to my side of the bed. I think about Evelyn, who noticed I seemed more like myself lately without understanding what that meant. I think about the carefully constructed life that suddenly feels like a costume I can't wait to take off. I kiss her again, and this time there's no hesitation, no careful measuring of consequences. There's only this moment, this truth, this feeling of finally breathing after years of holding my breath. We stay like that for what feels like hours, kissing and talking in whispers, her hands tracing patterns on my skin that spell out promises neither of us can make yet. The outside world fades away until there's nothing but the circle of lamplight around us and the radical honesty of wanting something and admitting it. But eventually, reality intrudes. The clock on her mantel chimes 11, then midnight, and I know I have to leave before my absence becomes something I can't explain away. The drive home is surreal. My hands shake on the steering wheel, and I keep touching my lips, feeling the lingering imprint of her mouth on mine. The familiar streets look foreign, like I'm seeing them for the first time or like I'm a stranger passing through a place I used to know. When I pull into my driveway, my house glows warmly in the darkness. The porch light Marcus always leaves on for me, the soft glow from Evelyn's bedroom window, the security lights that make our yard look safe and managed and perfectly ordinary. It's beautiful in its way. It's the life I built, the refuge I created, the promise I made to myself that I would be good and grateful and content. But sitting in my car, Looking at this house that represents everything I thought I wanted, I know with absolute certainty that nothing can ever be the same. The woman who kissed Naomi tonight can't pretend to be satisfied with the careful love that waits inside those walls. She can't go back to measuring her words and wants, to accepting affection that schemes the surface without diving deep. I've remembered what it feels like to be truly known, truly wanted, truly alive. And now that I remember, I don't know how to forget again. I sit in the darkness for a long time, understanding that I'm at a crossroads that will define the rest of my life. Behind me is the woman I was this morning, content with her beautiful prison. Ahead of me is someone I don't recognize yet, someone brave enough to want what she wants without apology. The choice, I realize, isn't really a choice at all. The moment Naomi kissed me, the moment I kissed her back, I chose. Everything else is just logistics. The days after that first kiss pass in a haze of hyper-awareness. I feel like I'm walking through my life wearing someone else's skin. Everything familiar suddenly foreign. The coffee mug I've used for 5 years feels wrong in my hands. The bed I've shared with Marcus for 18 years feels too small and too large simultaneously. Even my reflection in the bathroom mirror seems like a stranger pretending to be me. I can't stop thinking about Naomi's hands on my face, the way she said my name like a prayer, the feeling of coming home to myself after decades of wandering. But I also can't stop thinking about Marcus reading his newspaper at breakfast, Evelyn practicing piano in the evenings, the rhythm of a life that continues around me as if nothing has changed when everything has changed. I try to maintain the facade, but it's like trying to hold water in my cupped hands. Marcus notices first, the way he always notices when something disrupts the careful order of our household. "You seem distracted," he says one morning, studying me over his coffee cup. "Everything okay?" "I'm fine," I tell him, the words automatic and hollow. "Just tired." But I'm not fine, and we both know it. I catch him watching me with a puzzled expression, like he's trying to solve a problem he can't quite identify. I've been his wife for so long that my unhappiness registers as a malfunction rather than a revelation. Evelyn notices too, in that sharp way teenagers have of seeing through adult pretenses. She finds me staring out the kitchen window one afternoon, lost in thoughts of Naomi's apartment, the way the light fell across her face when she kissed me. "Mom," Evelyn says, and I startle like I've been caught stealing. "Are you having a midlife crisis?" The question would be funny if it weren't so close to the truth. "What makes you ask that?" I say, trying to keep my voice light. "You keep zoning out. And you've been wearing lipstick to the grocery store." She studies me with the kind of perception that makes me want to confess everything. "Are you and Dad having problems?" "No, sweetheart. Your father and I are fine." The light tastes bitter on my tongue, but what else can I say? That I'm in love with someone who isn't your father? That the life we've built together suddenly feels like a beautiful prison? That I'm terrified I might be brave enough to want something real. But we're not fine, Marcus and I. The distance between us grows wider each day, a chasm I can't bridge because I don't want to bridge it anymore. Every conversation feels like an elaborate performance where we both pretend not to notice how little we actually connect. I see Naomi twice more that week, stolen hours that feel both essential and impossible. She doesn't push, doesn't demand answers to questions I'm not ready to ask. But her presence is patient pressure, a reminder that there's another way to live, another version of myself waiting if I'm brave enough to reach for her. We don't kiss again, but the memory of it hangs between us like a promise. She touches my hand when we talk, lets her fingers linger on my arm when she pours tea, looks at me with eyes that hold no judgment, only understanding. She knows I'm struggling, knows I'm torn between the life I've built and the life I want, and she offers no ultimatums, no deadlines, no pressure beyond her simple presence. But I can feel time running out anyway. Every lie I tell Marcus, every deflection I offer Evelyn, every moment I spend pretending to be someone I no longer recognize, it's all building towards something inevitable. I'm unraveling, thread by thread, and soon there will be nothing left to hold together. The breaking point comes on a Thursday evening. I've been out with Naomi, another supposed volunteer meeting that ran late, and I come home to find Marcus waiting in the kitchen with the kind of stillness that suggests barely controlled frustration. Where were you, he asks, and his tone is sharper than usual. I told you, volunteer work. The food bank initiative. The lie comes so easily now, but it feels heavier each time. Until 9:30. There was a lot to discuss. I move toward the refrigerator, trying to escape his scrutiny, but he follows me with his eyes. Clara, he says, and something in his voice makes me stop. We need to talk. I turn to face him, my heart hammering against my ribs. He looks older suddenly, tired in a way that has nothing to do with work. There are lines around his eyes that I hadn't noticed before, a wariness in his expression that makes my chest tight with guilt. You're not here anymore, he says quietly. Even when you're standing right in front of me, you're somewhere else entirely. What's going on? The question hangs between us like a bridge I could cross if I wanted to. I could tell him about the support group where I met Naomi, about the coffee dates that became something more, about the way I feel like I'm finally waking up after years of sleepwalking. I could try to explain that the problem isn't him, it's me, it's the life we built on assumptions that no longer fit. But instead I say, I don't know what you mean. His face changes, frustration giving way to something that looks like disappointment. You do know, he says. You know exactly what I mean. You've been distracted for weeks. Distant. Like you're living some other life in your head. The accuracy of his observation shocks me. I am living some other life in my head, a life where I'm brave enough to want what I want without apology, where I kiss Naomi without counting the cost, where I don't have to pretend that contentment is the same as happiness. I just need some space to figure things out, I say, but even as the words leave my mouth, I know they're not enough. Space for what? His voice rises slightly, and I can hear 18 years of marriage in the way he says it, the shared history, the accumulated trust, the assumption that we're on the same side of whatever this is. Space from what, Clara? I feel something crack inside my chest, some final barrier between the truth and the carefully constructed lies I've been telling myself as much as him. The words rise up from somewhere deep and desperate, somewhere that's been waiting years to speak. From this, I say, gesturing at the kitchen around us, at the life we've built with its scheduled dinners and measured affections and careful distance. From pretending that this is enough. His face goes very still. What's that supposed to mean? And suddenly, I can't stop myself. The truth pours out like water through a broken dam, messy and overwhelming and impossible to contain. It means I haven't been happy in years, Marcus. It means I've been going through the motions, playing the part of the wife you need me to be, but I'm not here. I haven't been here in so long I've forgotten what it feels like to actually be present in my own life. The words hang in the air between us, terrible and honest and impossible to take back. Marcus stares at me like I'm a stranger who's wandered into his kitchen speaking a language he doesn't understand. So what are you saying? He asks finally, and his voice is very quiet. I'm saying I don't know how to do this anymore. I'm saying I'm tired of pretending that going through the motions is the same as living. I'm saying. I pause, feeling the weight of what I'm about to admit, not just to him but to myself. I'm saying I'm somewhere else because I am. Because I've been somewhere else for years, and I can't find my way back to here. And I'm not sure I want to. The silence that follows is deafening. Marcus leans against the counter, his face cycling through emotions I can't read, confusion, hurt, anger, something that might be relief. When he finally speaks, his voice is carefully controlled. Is there someone else? The question I've been dreading, the one I don't know how to answer without destroying everything. But looking at his face, seeing the pain I've already caused, I realize that destruction might be the only honest thing left. Yes, I whisper, and the word falls between us like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples in every direction. He nods once, sharply, like he's confirming something he already suspected. Then he turns and walks out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with the weight of finally telling the truth. I stand in the silence of my kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of the life I'm about to dismantle, and for the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. I don't sleep that night. Marcus retreats to his office after our conversation, and I hear him on the phone, his brother, I think, from the low rumble of his voice through the walls. Later, I hear his footsteps on the stairs, the careful way he closes our bedroom door, the sounds of someone trying not to wake a person who isn't sleeping anyway. I lie in the darkness of our living room, curled on the couch where I've spent so many evenings folding laundry and watching television, and living the quiet life I built from careful choices. But tonight the familiar space feels like a museum exhibit, evidence of a person I used to be, artifacts of a life I can no longer inhabit. Sometime around 3 in the morning, I know with absolute certainty what I have to do. I move through the house like a ghost, gathering the pieces of myself I want to take with me. Not much. Some clothes, the wooden box from the back of my closet with its pressed flowers and old poems, a few photographs that belong to me alone. Everything else feels like it belongs to someone else, someone who cared about matching dish sets and seasonal decorations and maintaining the perfect suburban facade. The suitcase sits by the front door like a confession, but Marcus sleeps deeply upstairs and Evelyn won't be awake for hours. I have time to do this quietly, without explanations or arguments or the messy drama of goodbye scenes. This isn't a storm I'm leaving in. It's more like morning mist, dissipating slowly to reveal a landscape that was always there, waiting to be seen. I write the letter at the kitchen table, my handwriting strange in the pre-dawn darkness. The words come slowly at first, then faster, like I'm finally speaking a language I've been trying to remember for years. I tell Marcus that he's a good man who deserves someone who can love him the way he needs to be loved. I tell him that our problems aren't his fault, that I've been living as someone I'm not for so long I forgot it was a choice. I tell him I'm sorry for the lies, for the years of going through the motions, for building a life on a foundation that was never as solid as it appeared. I don't mention Naomi by name. That truth is for later conversations, for when the initial shock has worn off, and we can speak as two people who once loved each other, but got lost along the way. Tonight is just about the leaving, about finally choosing authenticity over safety. For Evelyn, I write separately, my heart breaking with every word. I tell her that sometimes adults have to make difficult choices about who they really are, that love doesn't always look the way we expect it to, that I hope someday she'll understand that leaving isn't the same as abandoning. I tell her she's extraordinary and brave, and that I need her to keep being those things even when the world gets complicated. I tell her I love her enough to be honest, even when honesty is the hardest thing. The house is silent around me as I fold the letters and leave them on the counter where Marcus will find them with his morning coffee. Everything looks the same as it always has, the fruit bowl on the island, the stack of mail by the phone, the school permission slip Evelyn needs me to sign today. But it all feels like set pieces in a play that's ending, props that belong to characters we'll never be again. I pick up my suitcase and walk out the front door, closing it gently behind me. The click of the lock sounds final in the pre-dawn quiet. The drive across town feels like traveling between worlds. The streets are empty except for a few early commuters and the occasional delivery truck. Traffic lights cycle through their colors for no one, and I have the strange sensation that I'm the only person awake in the entire city, the only one moving through this liminal space between night and morning, between one life and another. Naomi Street is lined with old maple trees that arch overhead like a cathedral. Her house sits back from the road, lights glowing warm in the early darkness. I sit in my car for a moment, engine running, looking at that rectangle of yellow light spilling from her kitchen window. Inside is a life I don't know yet, a version of myself I'm still learning to trust, a future that feels both terrifying and inevitable. I turn off the engine and walk to her door with my suitcase in hand. She answers on the first knock, as if she's been waiting. She's wearing a soft robe and her hair is loose around her shoulders, and she looks at me with eyes that hold no surprise, only the kind of understanding that comes from recognizing something you've been hoping for without daring to expect it. She doesn't ask what happened or whether I'm sure or if I've thought this through. She simply steps aside and lets me enter, closing the door gently behind us both. "Clara," she says, and my name in her voice sounds like coming home. I set down my suitcase and look around her living room, the books and plants and art that reflect a life lived authentically, without apology or pretense. It's not my space yet, but it could be. For the first time in decades, I can imagine growing into a life instead of just maintaining one. I don't know what comes next, I tell her, because it's the truth and because truth is all I have left to offer. "We don't have to know yet," she says, taking my hand in both of hers. We just have to be brave enough to find out. Standing in her living room with morning light beginning to filter through the windows, I realized that bravery isn't about knowing what comes next. It's about stepping forward anyway, into uncertainty and possibility, and the radical act of finally living as yourself. I think about Marcus waking up to find my letter, about Evelyn discovering that her mother is someone she never quite knew. I think about the conversations that will need to happen, the explanations and apologies and careful rebuilding of relationships on new terms. I think about the life I'm leaving behind and the life I'm stepping into, both of them real, both of them mine in different ways. But mostly I think about the feeling of Naomi's hands holding mine, about the way she says my name like it means something important, about the extraordinary ordinariness of finally being exactly where I belong. I step across the threshold completely, and for the first time in 23 years, I feel like I'm home.